University Technology Malaysia, senior officials of the Malaysian government and University Technology Malaysia, distinguished guests, respected Japanese partners, fellow academicians, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. Ohayo gozaimasu. That's about all I know. Firstly, I would like to thank University of Technology Malaysia for this invitation to participate in their celebration of Japan Day. For me, this is very significant because I have a great admiration for Japan and the Japanese people and their achievements. Malaysia, after visiting Malaysia in 1961, a long time ago, most of you were not born, I visited Japan in 1961, and subsequently I visited Europe and many other places, and I observed the achievements of all these countries. I wondered why some countries do well and why some countries fail or do not do as well. Over time, I began to realize that the performance of an individual or a race or nation is related to not the color of the skin, not the place where they live, not their race or whatever. It is connected to the culture of the people. Culture here includes the value system. If the value system is right, then the people will succeed, individuals will succeed. But if the value is wrong, you will find that they will never succeed, despite their being exactly the same as other people. I believe that in terms of brain power, we are equal. There's slight variations perhaps, but we are as capable as other people. And other people are as capable as we are. But it is the value system and the culture that determines whether we fail or we succeed in life. Observing this, it came to my mind that it is necessary to observe the performance and the value system of the people in Malaysia, particularly the Malays, and those of other countries. In particular, I noticed when I went to Japan in 1961 that the Japanese were working very hard to rebuild their country. As you know, Japan went through a very disastrous war, which resulted in a lot of the Japanese cities, their factories, and their homes being destroyed. They had to rebuild their country. And rebuilding does not mean just building buildings. It also means building their infrastructure and their economic assets. And they were working very hard indeed. They were very disciplined, and it was obvious that they were determined to recover as soon as possible. If you read the book by Akio Morita, the founder of Sony, he described that initially the Japanese worker was willing to work for a bowl of rice and some soy sauce, and that was all. It's because the employer was not in a position to pay them good pay, wages. But as you know, from that kind of beginning, the Japanese worker today earns much more than we do in Malaysia. All these things impressed me. And I thought that if we have the same attitude to life as the Japanese, then we should be able to achieve the same thing. And so we began to look at the Japanese and the culture that they possess. And as a result of this, I decided that there is much to be gained by adopting some of the value systems of the Japanese. As I said before, value system is very important for the success of an individual or a country or a nation. We need to have the value system that has propelled many countries to great success. And what are the value systems that I observe? Of course, in the first place, I learned about this old Japanese practice of committing harakiri if they fail. Now that is something that is worth adopting for Malaysians. By and large, we don't care so much about failing. We don't feel ashamed, certainly not to the extent of wanting to commit suicide. But we should feel ashamed, because when you feel ashamed of your failure, you will try not to fail. This translates into the modern attitude of the people who in the past would commit harakiri. They don't commit harakiri now, but they do feel ashamed, and to avoid feeling shame by whatever it is that they are doing, they try their best to produce the best that they can. Whatever they produce, it must be something that no one will laugh at, something that will be admired by people and wanted by people. That is the genesis of quality. The desire to be admired, the desire not to be shamed. If you have that strong feeling about not wanting to be ashamed of your performance, then you will do your best to achieve the best result. That was something that I analyzed the reason why the Japanese people have that kind of culture and have that kind of achievement. And if we adopt that kind of feeling, I think we too can succeed. Today people do not feel ashamed at all. You see them going to jail and smiling. You see people smiling when you tell them, hey, you are a thief. There is no feeling of shame. I think if we feel ashamed of our bad performance, then we will avoid doing something that will make us feel ashamed. So if we adopt this value, then of course we will perform much better than what we do today. But there are other values which we need to adopt, which is not entirely Japanese, but belong to other successful people and nations as well, among which is hard work. You have to work hard. If you are laid back and you want to rest all the time, and you don't care whether you finish your work or not, you're not going to succeed. You have to work hard. You have to study hard. I would like to say about my experience studying. You see, I was not the best student who went to Singapore to study medicine. I was, in fact, very far below the senior Cambridge results of the other students. They had 6 A's, 7 A's, 8 A's. I had only 3 A's. So I was far behind them. I realized that unless I work hard, I wouldn't be able to pass my medical exams. So what I did was quite simple. I read my textbook very many times, 10 times or more. And you know what happened? When you have to answer examination questions, the moment you read the question, you have in your mind the picture of the page in the book that relates to that particular thing. This is normal human phenomenon. If you meet a person once, you cannot recognize him. But if you meet him several times, many times, you know him even if you look at the back of his person, of this person. Because you know already, you register in your mind, without consciously doing it, register in your mind the characteristic of any one person, and you will be able to identify him even by his voice. That is because you do things many, many times. So if you have to do any work and you find that the result is not so good, do it again. Do it again and again and again until you produce good results. Even if it is like carving a piece of wood. I realized I tried my hands at carving. The result was horrible, but over time, doing it very many times, I was able to produce a fairly good result, better than the first one. So the thing is, if you are hardworking, rajin, if you are hardworking, even if you are behind others in terms of results of your examination, you are going to perform very well. So between the sense of shame and working hard, you are going to improve yourself. It is a natural phenomenon. But of course there are other qualities, other values that we should have in order to do well. For example, you should be trustworthy, beramanah. You may remember that we used that as a slogan during my first term as Prime Minister, bersih, cekap and amanah. Amanah, trustworthiness is very important. And that means that you will be trusted by people. They will let you manage their money even. They will make you an accountant in their company, and eventually, of course, you will be promoted very high because you are honest. It is important to be honest, to be responsible for whatever it is that you are tasked with. You have to work, you have to ensure that nothing is lost that is placed in your, made to be your responsibility. Sometimes we find in Malaysia, people are not so very trustworthy perhaps. For example, in order to educate Malaysians who are very poor, we gave them scholarships. We paid money, big money, for them to study so that they can earn a better income, improve their lifestyle. And so they went to study in the universities, in the country and abroad, on the scholarships given to them, loans actually given to them. Unfortunately, when they come back, they don't want to repay the loan that they have taken. We have accumulated 36 billion ringgit of unpaid loans to the PTPTN. I am ashamed, but they are not. They are earning an income. They can very well pay, but they just don't feel like paying. But it's so, I mean, it's only $100 a month. If you are earning $2,000, what is $100 a month? Yet they don't pay. Why? It's because they have no amanah. They are not trustworthy. And when that kind of thing happens, it's regarded as typical of the persons of this particular race. So it is not just yourself, but other people are besmirched because you have not been trustworthy. Then of course there are people who, when they borrow money, they do not repay their loan. If After that, people do not want to lend them money. You cannot be angry. It's because you establish a reputation of being untrustworthy, of being unwilling to repay loan, even when you have the money. I admit that I've lent money to friends and relatives and all that, and they have not paid me back. It's nothing. I mean, they were smiling away, they meet me, they didn't care. They didn't think it's a duty to repay loans. But you establish a reputation like that, it affects your own community, your own people. People will not trust you. And because people will not trust you, then you cannot progress in your life, you cannot be trusted, you cannot be promoted, etc. So between a sense of shame, being hardworking, and also being trustworthy, you should succeed. Individuals should succeed, and the whole race would succeed. And I believe that in Japan, the sense of shame is very strong, and they work very hard. I went there, and in winter they were preparing for the Tokyo Olympics of 1964. They were working hard to prepare for the Olympics. And the cost was very low at that time because 1 yen was only equal to 1 cent. It was not until the Plaza Accord, when the value of the yen was pushed up, the Japanese were producing the cheapest, the highest quality goods. So it is entirely possible for us to adopt those kind of values. Just ask yourself, aren't you ashamed when you do not do so well? When you fail your exam, you should feel ashamed. You should ask yourself, why did I fail? And the answer is that, well, I drink coffee too much at Starbucks. I don't study. I don't study hard. Believe me, if you study hard, you read your textbook 10 times, it will stick in your mind. And when you are asked a question, immediately the picture also appears in your mind. I was not good in pathology, and I read my pathology book very many times, I don't know how many times. When I was answering question, I could see the page and I could see the picture because it registers by itself. Just like you see a person, you recognize him, you see his face. When you mention his name, immediately the image of the person comes to you. This is God-given. So, make use of it if you want to succeed in life. If you want your country to grow and become a fully developed country, you must have good values. Values which can help you succeed in life. But if you're laid back, you say, well, it doesn't matter. After all, they're paying me only this salary. And they don't deserve to get good results from these small salaries. So there was an idea that the most important thing is the income, high income. We want to be a high income country. Everybody will be paid high income. But high income doesn't mean anything. It is your purchasing power which is important. You may have high income. You know, some countries, they pay in millions of rupiahs or liras or whatever. But they can buy very little. It's far better to pay less, but be able to purchase more. So there are things like this that we in Malaysia must look at. And one of the best example I still think is the Japanese model. We need to learn. That is why we purposely encourage students to go to Japan, but they also go to Korea, and now many are going to China. But it is not about acquiring knowledge alone. You can become an engineer, you can become a doctor, You can become an architect, but if your character is bad, you are going to fail. Some characters are such that whatever they learn, they apply in carrying out crimes. It's possible. Since you are an engineer, you will know how to steal things which normal people cannot steal, because you have the knowledge. But knowledge applied that way would be damaging to you and to the country. So knowledge should be accompanied by character. And what I'm talking about to you is about character. You must have good character. And good character is about having good value system. Working hard doesn't kill you. You can survive even if you work hard. It doesn't mean that you work hard or therefore you are going to die tomorrow. You will die because you eat too much. So I would like to congratulate UTM for this having this MJIIT. You see, this I had asked for the Japanese to set up universities in Malaysia. You can even teach in Japanese, it doesn't matter. You see, the reason why I suggested this is because going to Japan is very costly. In Japan, everything is costly now. It used to be a very cheap place, but now it is very costly. But if you have a Japanese university here, you can provide Japanese education together with understanding Japanese culture and value system, and the cost to you would be much less. So more people would benefit from Japanese education. On the top of that, of course, other people from other countries, poor students, can come and study in a Japanese institution in Malaysia. Actually, the cost of living in Malaysia is still very low. Of course, everybody complains, but then complaining is part of our culture. So we complain about high cost of living. You go to Singapore and you find that everything costs $3 more than here. If it is $1 here, it is $3 there. But that is in Singapore currency, because one Singapore dollar is equivalent to 3 ringgit. So a lot of Singaporeans come to Malaysia because their money has greater value. So we should not think about what pay, what wage we get, but what purchasing power that we have. And in order to have a good income, it is not just about raising the income level, raising the minimum wage, but it is really about increasing your purchasing power. And when the wages go up, it must be accompanied by greater productivity. And with greater productivity, then the increase in wage will not affect the cost of living. Many people talk about pay, about income, high income, but high income with a high productivity is damaging. You know, some countries where the value of their currency has fallen so very low because they keep on trying to chase high cost of living by increasing the pay. You do that, then the currency will depreciate in value. So I think I've taken more time than I should, and I suppose there will be question. Okay, so I will end there. Thank you very much.